Good afternoon, everyone. It's Rob here from First Session again. I am back. It's Mental Health Week, and we have another great guest joining us, Madelyn Chung. It is Thursday, and it's a sunny day in Toronto, and hopefully others are enjoying the sun across the country, across the continent in springtime. Madelyn is now here, which is amazing.
Hi,
Hey, Madelyn, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Thanks so much for joining.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, it's excellent to have you. How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. I'm really happy the sun is out. I've been doing these early morning wake up calls, and the reason I actually got out of bed today, and not sleep afterwards, was because the sun was out. It motivated me to get up.
Yes, yes, beautiful day here. And are you in Toronto?
I am, yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Well, let me jump in and read your bio so that everyone can
Hmm.
hear that. And just the correct pronunciation of your name, Madelyn Chung.
Chung. Hmm.
Perfect. Madelyn Chung, she, her, hers, is a registered psychotherapist qualifying, music therapist seeking accreditation, and founder of the RepresentASIAN Project, a platform dedicated to celebrating, advocating, and elevating Asian representation in the media and beyond. She is a recent graduate of Wilfrid Laurier University's Master of Music Therapy program and uses words and music to create connection and community among individuals. A second-generation Canadian, Madelyn aims to validate and amplify voices that are often silenced or unheard through both her writing and therapy work. Welcome, Madelyn.
Thanks so much.
Great to have you. So what led you to become a therapist now, but where did your mental health journey begin? When did your relationship with mental health kind of come into your conscious?
I think it was when I was about 18. I was going to university. I was going to Ryerson J School. And I started to really see my mental health decline. I think with all of the different changes in my life at that point, it ended up getting really bad. And I was quite depressed. I was sleeping for most of the day, would wake up at maybe like 4 or 5 p.m., would eat a bit, and then just spend the rest of the day or night in bed.
Hmm.
So I was in a really, really low point, I think, at the end of my first year of university. And I've been really lucky to, have a really supportive mother
Hmm.
who, despite being an immigrant to this country, um, understood the importance of mental health. And it wasn't something that was stigmatized or taboo with her. She really
Amazing.
encouraged me to seek help and assisted me in getting help. So I went to therapy, I went on medication, and that really helped me a lot. But I think I still held within me the shame because mental health to other people was just so stigmatized. And I didn't want people to know that I was struggling. I didn't want people to know that I was on meds and I didn't want to rely on them. So it's been a journey. I mean, I think again, I've been so lucky to have my mom's support. But there are some people in my life who are really close to me that they weren't supportive. So I mean,
Hmm.
I was in a relationship several years ago, and I was going through a pretty bad relapse of my depression and anxiety. And the parents of my partner at that point basically said, like, to him, you can't be someone's mental health crutch. And that just was like, whoa,
Wow.
after having such a supportive family system and like a group of people that were close to me, for my partner's family to say that and to be like, no, you can't help this person out, you need to just like basically get rid of her,
Wow.
was like quite quite something. Obviously that relationship didn't work out, probably for the better. But yeah, I mean, it's been up and down for me, but I think I've really, towards my mid 20s to now, I really became more stable and learned to take better care of myself and to not feel guilty about taking care of myself. I tend to be a person who overworks herself and try to keep really, really busy to keep my
Hmm.
mind off things. But, you know, um, the pandemic really forced me to slow down last year and to be with my feelings, and everything kind of came to the surface, and I really learned the importance of taking care of me and not feeling guilty about that.
That's amazing. So good to hear that. And what sparked you into going back to school to become a therapist,
Mm.
and why music?
So music has always been part of my life. I played piano since I was young, and it was always a big joy of mine.
Mhm.
And I had been working in journalism for 7 or 8 years, and I really wasn't feeling fulfilled anymore. I had gotten laid off from a big job that I had, and that was in 2016. And I felt like I lost myself because my whole identity, I think, I shaped around that job title. And then
Mhm.
once it was taken away from me, I was kind of like, okay, who am I? Who is Madelyn Chung aside from being the editor of X publication? Um, so I really, I was really lucky that I got another job opportunity shortly after. But as I was there, I just found I wasn't happy anymore. I wasn't fulfilled with what I was doing, with the content that I was writing. It didn't feel meaningful. And there was something inside of me that said, you can do something more than this. Like you're meant to do something more than this. And
Mhm.
I'd always been curious about a profession that would help other people. And then I heard of music therapy, and I got to see, I went to a few presentations and got to see it in action of just how powerful it can be. And it made sense because it married two of my, big passions, music, and then also wanting to be in a helping profession. So I decided to quit my job and focus on going back to school, which I did. And now I'm here.
That's amazing. If you could explain to someone who has no idea what music therapy is in like max 2 sentences,
Oh my gosh, there's
how
so
would you
many.
explain it?
There's fellow music therapists on this chat right now, and I'm so scared I'm gonna mess it up because it's such a broad spectrum. But basically, for me, music therapy, it's a profession in which you use music as a tool to reach certain goals. So that can be spiritual, emotional, physical, mental, social. I am trained in music psychotherapy, hence why I'm part of the College of Registered Psychotherapists.
Mhm.
But for me, I use a mixture of both music and verbal techniques. Music is really the way that I help connect with other people and help um, them explore emotions that they may not have known were there, or that they may not be able to speak aloud. So, I mean, Rob, if you think about yourself when you listen to music, have you ever like listened to a song and then you're just suddenly overcome with emotion?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I was actually in a therapy session earlier today,
Does it have
and
music?
there was music playing at one part, and this guitar riff started, and my mind just got like lost, and like I'm like that sounded like a Stone song.
Mm,
Uh, but
yeah.
anyways, I got back on the hurt healing part. Yeah, music is a big passion of mine too. Like, how do you use music yourself in feeling good? Like, how do you incorporate it into your wellness?
Oh my gosh, just putting on like my favorite songs in the car, like when I go on a drive and just being able to blast them and like sing them at the top of my lungs without any judgment or anything from anyone is just like the best thing. And then also playing piano and playing guitar, it really grounds me. And I relate so much I really resonate with lyrics too, because, I'm a writer as well. So the lyrics are a big thing for me. But yeah, I think
Awesome.
music is just so powerful, and it can bring up so many different memories, feelings, emotions, associations, and it's it can be really transformative.
Hmm. Hmm. One more question about your upbringing before I
Hmm.
want to ask you about what else you're up to these days. Why do you think your mom was so open to talking about mental health and advocating for you getting help?
You know what? I don't know. I think I just got lucky because out of everyone, in my family and between her siblings, she's definitely the most liberal and the most open. I feel very lucky that she taught me to be very accepting of everyone when maybe other people in my family weren't as accepting, and to be inclusive. She was a teacher. She worked with special needs kids, so maybe that played a role in
Hmm.
it. But I wonder too sometimes if, she's been through a lot in her life, and perhaps she wasn't able to get that help or have that support, so maybe she wanted to provide it. And essentially that's why I do what I do right now, is because I think a lot of the times when I was younger, I didn't feel seen or heard in many different areas. Like, growing up in a really white town and being like pretty much the only Asian in my school, didn't relate to anyone, always felt different. B, not seeing anyone who looked like me on screen. And then just so many other things, like people just not validating my feelings or my emotions or telling me I'm too sensitive. So through the work that I do now, I really just want to help people feel seen and heard, whether that's through my writing or through my therapy work, because that's something that I think I lacked when I was younger.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And your mom is a first generation Canadian
Yeah, she
immigrant.
immigrated from a tiny island on the Indian Ocean called Mauritius.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard of it. That's amazing. That's
yeah.
amazing. Um, so tell us about Represent Asian Project. When did you start it? What's it all about?
Yeah, I started that. So that occurred while I was in school. It happened, the idea came to me one night when I had just like finished, I was doing my first ever placement and working with a client for the first time. And I remember just getting back home and feeling so overwhelmed and exhausted and wanting to sleep. But then as I was trying to get to sleep, an idea just kind of popped in my head. And I was like, I really want to create something that I didn't have when I was younger. Like I wanted to create a website or a feed where I would see people who looked like me and that celebrated people who looked like me who were doing amazing things that maybe the mass media wasn't celebrating. So I started thinking, I'm like, okay, what can I call this? Because I tend to have a lot of ideas, but the name always gets me, and then I tend to stop because I can't think of a good name. So I came up with a name. I immediately like bought a domain name and started getting all of the accounts like on Instagram, on Twitter, everything,
Hmm.
just to kind of save it in case I wanted to do something about it. At this point, it was like 2 in the morning, and I was like, my brain was just going crazy because I was just so excited about it. And then from there, I kind of built it up. The website itself launched March 11th, 2020, which was the day that COVID was declared a global pandemic.
Wow.
And I could never have expected what was to come.
Hmm.
I think, at the beginning of the pandemic, it was so disheartening to hear about the beginning of, the racism against Asians, with people blaming Chinese people for bringing COVID. I remember even I was doing a placement for school and a client's partner was just talking openly and saying, oh my God, this coronavirus thing, like, I'm just going to tell anyone to just go back to China if like they're here. I don't want them coming here. I don't want them bringing it. And I was like, okay, so you're saying this in front of me, like a visible Asian person. So that's kind of when I first was noticing it.
Hmm.
And it was really disheartening because I felt like it took me a long time to come to terms with my racial identity and to be proud of it. And
Hmm.
I felt like in media, there had been so many good successes, and we were kind of getting to a point where being Asian was being celebrated and we were being represented in a positive and accurate way. Not perfect, obviously, but still much better than we were in the past. And then like COVID hit and there was all this rhetoric and racism. And I was like, oh, it's like all of that work that had been done was undone. So that was quite disheartening, but it turned out that the platform, I think that was the best time it could have launched because amid everything that is happening within the Asian community, it has created a community in itself, to again celebrate what's so great about being Asian and all the wonderful things that the Asian community has done and is continuing to do. So I'm really, really, it was an odd timing, and it's kind of ironic that that's the
Hmm.
day
Hmm.
that it launched out of, um, we couldn't have planned that, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that at some point it sounds like it was a sort of a journey or growth journey to get to the point of being proud of your culture. Like, tell us about that. When did that happen? What was it like before you were proud of your culture?
I mean, I think, frankly, I wanted to be white when I was younger. I was surrounded by white people. I was very much like, nope, don't want to date an Asian guy, like, don't find them attractive because I wanted to be as white as possible.
Hmm.
And I think it didn't help that a lot of the people who were around me and a lot of my friends were also white because there weren't many Asians around, aside from like the few family members that I have around here or family friends. So I really resented my culture, which is, it makes me really sad. I think I felt really shameful about that and guilty about it, but I'm trying to be kinder to myself about it and to not feel shame and to just say, you know what, that was then, but now I've really become proud of my culture and who I am. I think, you know, as I grew older, I began to understand more the nuances of my culture and, you know, why my parents did what they did when I was growing up and the way they raised me. And I got closer to my elders. And but I think a big turning point was in 2018 when Crazy Rich Asians came out, because it was, again, like the first time I had seen Asians being celebrated and like people saying, oh, wow, look at Constance Chan, she's beautiful. And I was like, wow, people think that Asian women are beautiful, because I had always grown up thinking that people didn't think that, because you would never see Asian women in magazines. I watched America's Next Top Model religiously, and there were like barely any Asian models. So I would never see people who looked like me. So 2018 came around, and that's when I kind of really started to explore my identity through my writing. And I wrote a few pieces relating to being Asian, and I saw how it resonated with other people. And I received so many amazing messages and emails from people saying like, wow, I feel the same way. And I feel so good to learn that I'm not the only one who feels this way. And I think, again, that's also where the Representation Project comes in, is I want people to hear Asian stories and to hear Asian experiences that resonate with them, so they know that they are not alone in that.
That's amazing. That's so good. How has the project, like, how has it evolved? Like, I mean, it's been a year
It's been a year.
with COVID, and then, you know, the even worse events that sparked even more racism in the South, the murders.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about where it's gone and like what it's done and what you've heard from the community about the effects it's had.
I mean, after the Atlanta attacks, it definitely grew. And I think people were really looking for a place and a community to turn to grieve and to talk about that trauma and to openly share what they were going through and to see other people, you know, sharing as well. Um, it was a team of two, me and my friend Rebecca. I think she's on this call, and we recently had two more people join us, Hannah, who I think is also on this call, and another girl in Young. So now we're a team of four, which is great, and I could have never imagined that, and I feel so blessed to be working with these three wonderful women. But I think, yeah, our following definitely grew. I think now that we have more people, we were able to create more content and really reevaluate that not only, you know, the ethos before was celebrating, advocating, and elevating Asian representation in media and beyond, but it's also kind of grown to representing the voices and experiences of Asians, specifically Asian Canadians, because we are based in Canada and that's what we know. So there's definitely a lot more work to be done. I mean, I know one of our big things that we need to improve on is we skew very, very East Asian in our page, because we who are running it are East Asian. So we definitely need to cater more to the other Asian communities, Pacific Islanders, South Asians, Southeast Asians, etc. So that's something that I definitely want to work on and to build upon and improve on.
That's great. What would you say people who sort of deny that racism exists against Asians?
The polite thing to look at the evidence. I mean, to not disregard our experiences. And I think that's the most difficult part for a lot of Asian people is, you know, I think back to all the microaggressions I received when I was younger. And if I said something about her, I said, you know, like, I didn't really appreciate you saying that, or that doesn't feel right. I was told I was too sensitive. And I think a lot of people in the Asian community have dealt with that, where our feelings are kind of just pushed aside and we're not, they're not taken seriously or not validated. So, I mean, I don't think you can say racism doesn't exist, because it's clear that it does. We're seeing almost daily, especially in the States, brutal attacks still, violent attacks against Asian people, specifically the elderly. You see photos and they're awful, like heartbreaking, and just, I don't understand how anyone could say it's not a thing or doesn't exist.
Yeah, in speaking with some other therapists, you know, Asian therapists, Canadian Asian therapists, I get the sense that a lot of the work is to build up clients' it can be to build up clients like resilience and to like stand up for themselves. But
Mm.
why, like, that seems like also a pretty big burden to have, like, to be kind of like, oh, I have to be strong because I'm like always getting, there's always a
Yeah,
risk. Yeah,
yeah.
what can you comment? What can you say about that?
I mean, I think that I'm more so in the mindset of really, at least personally, trying to validate and acknowledge my own feelings without feeling any shame or guilt for them. And that's kind of what I encourage other people to do the same. Because yeah, you're right. It is a burden to be like, well, I have to be strong and I have to be on guard. Like I go outside still and I'm scared. Like I'm scared to walk around the city sometimes because I've heard of people in Toronto too who've experienced attacks and like, hearing really awful comments. Yeah, it's a tough question.
Hmm.
I don't really know. I think there's still so much personally myself that I need to unpack, because it's so layered and so nuanced that,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's a lot to think about.
What's some of the like positive feedback you've gotten or like feedback that's kind of kept you going with like the Representation Project? Tell us a little bit about how you've changed people for the better.
I mean, it's been really great just to hear people say that they enjoy the content and they love the feed and how it's so validating to, you know, um, see content that resonates with them, specifically Asian Canadians. We had a really, really great story. I got a great email the other day of, from a jewelry company, who has been, they didn't really, the two owners are Vietnamese Canadian, they're immigrants, and they didn't, really reveal their identities for a long time. And they had actually come to us last year and told us their story, and we published it on our site. And from there, they've really been talking about, their immigration story and their story of, being Vietnamese Canadian. And I got a wonderful email from, their publicist saying like it's because being able to share their story on your platform and a platform like yours that they feel more comfortable and they see the impact of what it is to share your story. And that just meant the world to me. Like, so I can only hope that it will continue to impact other people and again make them feel seen and heard.
That's incredible. Where do you think that represent Asian could go? Where would you like it to go and evolve?
I mean, I have big dreams for it, but I really, I think, would love if we could create some sort of, mentorship program as well within it, because I think, growing up, I would have loved to have mentors both in like the journalism space and in the therapy space who were also Asian Canadian, so they would understand, my experiences better and what it's like to be an Asian Canadian in a newsroom, for example, or at a publication. So I definitely would like to go into that and then just continue to build the community and provide, support for the community as well. Maybe incorporating my therapy in there somehow. I don't know. We'll see.
Amazing, amazing. And finally, so what are some sort of COVID specific, wellness tips that you've developed for yourself that you might be able to share with folks who are interested?
So one thing that really keeps my head in a good space is exercise.
Mhm.
It's always been that way for me, and I feel like I know when I stop exercising or I stop moving and my gas tank kind of gets empty and it's like, oh, I got to fill it up again to be able to function properly. So, I'm really lucky. I think my friend Tiffany is on this call, but we do virtual workouts several times a week, um, because that's just what keeps us going. I try to meditate as well, journaling obviously because, I'm a writer, and then listening to music and connecting with music because I think that again music can bring up so many different emotions and help you feel things. And it's important to feel our feelings, especially as someone who tried to like always distract herself from feeling, the more challenging things. I've really, have learned to accept, okay, I'm feeling something challenging and that's okay. And I'm going to sit with it for a bit and let it flow past, and then it'll be okay. It's not going to completely overwhelm me. It'll be okay.
I love that. I love that. Well, is there any last parting message or words that you want to share with our audience and
Um,
your audience?
I think that the one thing I would share for anyone, who's watching who is not part of the Asian community and is, wondering of ways to help, to really look inside yourself and analyze and like acknowledge, okay, how have I maybe contributed to this? Maybe like in a seemingly harmless comment that I made to someone else many years ago, but how have I contributed to this? And to not, again, feel shame or guilt or beat yourself up over it, but to acknowledge and be like, okay, yes, this is how I've contributed, and now I'm going to change, and this is how I'm going to make a change, because I think that's really important. I think that acknowledging it and just becoming aware of it is like the first step to actual change.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you. And where can people find you? Where can people connect with you and the project?
You can find me at Madelyn Chung and Represent Asian Project, which is all together in one word.
On Instagram.
Yes, on Instagram. Yeah, or representasianproject.com.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you, Madelyn. I look forward to connecting with you again soon, and
Thank you
I
so much,
really
Rob.
appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.